Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm Annabelle, Talent Coordinator at BioBuzz, and I am thrilled to have our amazing guest today, Savanah Saldaña-Shumaker. So this Career Catalyst event today, Savanah is part of Women in Bio, and this is part of our ongoing collaboration with the Women in Bio Biohealth Capital Region chapter to help promote women in biotechnology and life science industries in the growing biohealth capital region. And a little bit about Savanah today. So Savanah is a scientist, entrepreneur, and STEM advocate who excels in balancing multiple roles in business, teaching, and volunteering. Today, she'll be sharing some strategies that she has on time management, prioritization, building a strong support network, and maintaining well-being while juggling multiple commitments. She'll also be sharing some valuable insights for anyone that's looking to thrive in a dynamic career. A little bit more about Savanah. So she's an instructor of practical applications at the U.S. Naval Academy, co-founder of 8 Count Cosmetics, and an active leader in scientific organizations like Women in Bio, like we mentioned, and the Chemical Society of Washington. Before I do hand it over to Savanah, I do want to give a big thanks to our sponsor, BioTrack, for supporting the program today. BioTrack is a top resource for upskilling in the life sciences. They've trained over 17,000 scientists through their cutting-edge biotech workshops. You can visit biotrack.com to learn more. Definitely check them out. Like I said, great resource for upskilling. And also want to mention that today's event is part of our BioBuzz Talent Lab, which is your go-to resource for career growth and industry connections. Definitely get on, join the Talent Lab today, and you'll see a lot more resources like this. So now I want to hand it over to Savanah to get us started.
Great, I'll share my screen. All right, if someone could give me a verbal confirmation that I'm in presentation mode.
Perfect, see it.
Okay, great. All right, well, thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm really happy to be here and represent Women in Bio Capital Region because that organization played a huge part in me getting to almost all of the positions and meeting my goals that I've met today. And I really wouldn't be here without some of the time management skills that I've learned from people in that organization, but also other people I've just connected with through that organization. So I'm really happy to represent and then also talk about how to balance many different things. So just kind of the plan for my slides, there are going to be a lot of words per slide. The idea is I don't want you to have to sit here and not take your eyes off of the screen because I keep flipping through animations or there's only 2 things per slide. So feel free to screenshot if you step away to grab your lunch or catch up on something else. Hopefully you won't miss too much of anything. The 2 main topics I'm going to talk about are time management and network management. And then at the end, just to echo, if you have questions or maybe you want like something more specific to you and the needs that you have with time management, we can definitely go over that in the Q&A. So just put your questions in the chat or hold your questions until I'm done with the slides. And then kind of most importantly, just a disclaimer, everything that I'm talking about today is based off of my own experience. So again, I'm not a therapist. I'm not like a licensed life coach or career coach. This is just kind of tips and tricks that I've accumulated over the years and I'm sharing with all of you based on my own personal experiences. So for context, for those who I haven't met before, it is important that I manage my time really intensely because I have a lot of things going on. This is on purpose. I want to be doing all of these things. It's not like, you know, my life or career just spiraled out of control and now I have to get it all gathered with time management. It's just that I want to be doing all of these things. So I need to orchestrate my day and my time in a specific way. I'm a day job person. I'm at the United States Naval Academy as of October. So that was a big switch. I've been in research my whole career. And so switching into teaching, that was a career shift, slightly different schedule, different things I need to do in the day. And then I also have 2 business ventures. I'm a co-founder of 2 companies. One is 8 Count Cosmetics, which are makeup products for performers, are on the market. The other one is more of a slow burn program or project I've been working on called SCS Laboratory Solutions. That's a piece of chemistry lab equipment I'm trying to develop. And then I'm also really passionate about volunteering. I'm the sponsorship committee chair for Women in Bio Capital Region. I'm also on the Scientific Organizing Committee for Practical Applications of NMR Industry Conference, or PANIC, manager at large and budget committee chair for Chemical Society of Washington, and also on the committee for Washington Area Magnetic Resonance Association. All of the groups that these organizations represent and the mission, the different activities that we facilitate are things that I want to be involved with. And that also requires a certain amount of time management because I do have a full-time day job as well as business ventures. So we're going to kind of talk about that. So how to get started and keep the ball rolling with time management. The big thing that you need to do at the start of your time management makeover is to sit down with yourself and really be honest about what your time management hygiene is. So how do you manage your time, if at all? And then take time to create your strategy or your game plan, what needs to happen next to help you reach the goal that you're trying to achieve. So that means starting by asking yourself, what are you trying to do? You need to identify your goal. Are you wanting to move your time around so that you can find a new job? Are you trying to start a business yourself? Are you trying to get more involved with leadership opportunities? Or just do you feel overall like things are kind of out of control and you just want to be stable overall? Once you identify your goal, then you need to identify what your needs are. So what don't you have? What is keeping you from reaching those goals? It could be as simple as that you just need better planning materials, like maybe you don't use a calendar, whether that is a paper calendar or a Google Calendar or something like that. Or maybe it's a little bit more serious, and no matter what you've tried to do, no matter how much advice you've taken, different things you've tried, nothing's working out. And that's when you might need to sit down and consider meeting with a life coach or a career coach potentially. The next thing you need to identify are your hurdles. So what isn't working for you? Do you find that you're a procrastinator? Do you get a good plan going, but then you start talking to yourself in a really negative way and kind of bog yourself down with the negative self-talk? Or do you just generally have unhealthy habits with your time management? So what is holding you back? But then on the flip side, it's important to identify your strengths. So what is working for you? Think back to when and how you've accomplished your goals in the past, because chances are your whole life isn't a huge failure or you're a huge mess. Like right now, you just might not be in the best place regarding your time management, but there's definitely going to be things that have happened, maybe the present day, maybe last year, maybe 2 years ago, maybe last week, where you did hit your goal, no matter big or small, and kind of look to that for inspiration and pull those techniques or strategies into your new time management makeover. And then the last thing, and this is probably one of the most important ones, is to identify the hard and fast rules. So what won't change? The kind of two things that I think of with this topic are, does your work have strict expectations or boundaries? For example, with all of my volunteering, since I've been doing that, pretty much everywhere I've worked, it is not working on volunteering during work hours. Now, some corporations have a specific amount of hours per week where they want you to be involved with different organizations and represent the company. So figure out what those hard and fast rules are. If you like to work out a lot, some places have a fitness program where you can work out on company time because they want their employees to be healthy. Other places might say you need to deal with that in your personal time. Not our problem. That's okay too, but you just need to know, again, what are those hard and fast boundaries? And then the other thing to really think about is, are there static responsibilities in your life? For example, every single morning, do you need to take your dog out? Don't, lie to yourself and say, okay, at this time in the morning, I'm going to multitask and finish my slides or put my schedule together for the week or meal prep if you know you're doing drop-offs at school or taking care of your dog or you have some other responsibility. So really be honest with yourself about these different topics, and then you'll kind of be able to move forward from there. Something that's really important to realize is that you don't need to reinvent the wheel. We're all unique. We all have unique situations and goals that we're working towards, but at the same time, we're not that unique. So you probably don't need to create some crazy new time management technique or some super elaborate scheduling program or something over the top that no one's seen before. Take the time to familiarize yourself with planning techniques and time management philosophies that already exist and pull from there. Just like with science, you look at previous publications or talks that people gave in the past and move forward from there. That way you can not only learn from other people's mistakes, but work with techniques that do work. So some techniques that I think are worth trying, these are the ones that I call need-based techniques. So if you have a very clear and specific issue that you're working through, what is the fix? So one issue that comes to mind is a disorganized schedule. In this case, the fix would be a planner, a calendar, maybe an app. For me, after COVID, when things were more or less returning back to normal as they can be, I found that I wasn't able to maintain a schedule in my mind before. Prior to 2020, I didn't use a paper calendar. I didn't use any apps. I didn't use a Google Calendar, any type of calendar. I didn't need it. I could remember the date, time, everything. And after not having much of anything going on for several years, I literally couldn't remember my schedule from day to day. So I bought a book where it had different types of schedules in it. One was literally down to the hour of the day. You'd put what you needed to do each hour. Then kind of moved from that into just a general schedule for the day. Once I felt comfortable and I could remember that, then there was a schedule for the week, then for the month. And now I keep a Google Calendar. I have several different calendars for different groups and things, but I don't really need to look at it every day. Usually if I take a peek on like Sunday evening or maybe once during the week, I remember what I need to do because I retrained my brain to remember my schedule using these simple tools like a planner. Another issue is being easily distracted or stressed. And I think this is a really common issue that a lot of people deal with. The technique that I think is a good fix for this is called the Pomodoro method. I believe, if like legend is correct, that there was a student in Italy and he used a tomato-shaped kitchen timer because they were struggling with focusing or something of that nature, and set the timer and said, I'm not going to get up or do anything else till the timer goes off. This was really helpful for me as I got into business and scientific writing over the last couple of years. Again, things were a little bit slow throughout COVID. I didn't have a lot of advances to write about or business things to work on or strategies to put together for organizations. And so when I really needed to sit down and work on these things, I found myself getting distracted, or I couldn't focus, or I thought I was going to multitask and that would be better. And it really wasn't helping. So I started doing this technique by saying, I'm going to sit down for 30 minutes and only do this. And then by doing that over and over and over, I could just retrain myself to focus on one topic, focus on one task, and not move on until I was ready. It wasn't time-based anymore. It was, okay, I've completed the task I need to do. Now I'm going to move on and do something else. Some people would call this being intentional. Some people would call it being present. However you look at it, it essentially means you're not doing 4 different things at once. Whatever you're doing, you're focusing just on that and doing it well, rather than doing it halfway as decent and having to come back and do damage control later. The third issue is if you find that you need a lot of notes, so you have to constantly, again, check your schedule over and over, or you don't remember what you need to do in the day. Maybe you have 3 different to-do lists because you're just kind of scatterbrained and not able to keep track of all of your tasks. The fix for this, I think, would be chunking. So that's when you focus again on like a consolidated amount of things. This was helpful for me with managing multiple different schedules, my work schedule, my business schedule, and my volunteering schedule. I'm not going to sit down and do a bunch of planning or think about what needs to happen or troubleshoot for all of those things at once. I'm going to focus on just work at the academy, or just my business projects, or just my volunteering and what needs to happen in a certain work session, or I call it working on tasks. And you can do this by doing sort of a hybrid method with the planner and the Pomodoro technique. Again, it comes back to being intentional, focused, and not letting yourself get overwhelmed and try to do too many things at once. Because no matter how great your time management is, you only have, a set of eyes. There's only so many hours in the day. You can't do 500 things at once. It's just not possible. So a few techniques that are like my tried and true techniques are compartmentalization is a big one. Some people might find this really chaotic and not want to do it this way. For me, this helps me keep everything organized. I have 5 different email addresses, 5 Instagram accounts, 4 LinkedIn accounts, 2 Facebook accounts, 2 phone numbers, and a whole bunch of different separate Google calendars. Some are shared with friends, some it's with my husband, some it's with my business partners. I find that if I compartmentalize everything separate, then when I'm doing the Pomodoro method or the chunking or just doing what I need to do for the day, I know exactly where to look. I don't need to go into one email address or email account with thousands and thousands of unread emails and then search for the topic I want. I can go into my business email and say, okay, I have 1 email I need to read. Cool. I'm done with the business for the morning. Or I come into work, read through my emails for the day, and it's not being littered with a bunch of other volunteer things. So for me, keeping everything separate, whether it's social media accounts that are personal or ones that I run for volunteering or ones that I run for business, emails, phone numbers, keeping everything separate, it's like having a different drawer for you wouldn't put like the plates and the cups in the same drawer, or you wouldn't put a cutting board where your soup spoons are. It's just kind of chaotic. Everything has its proper place, and the same thing goes with your schedule and the different tools that you need to keep your schedule moving. Another thing is setting boundaries. Overall, I'm a yes person. I say yes to things. There's very rarely when I'll say, no, I won't do that, or no, I won't help you, or no, I'm not interested in this opportunity. But I do say no based on priorities. I'm going to talk about this in a little bit. When I was getting 8 Count Cosmetics up and running, there was a chunk of time where I pretty much didn't do anything else after work. Didn't do certain parties, other events, didn't stay late at work. And I was like, this time is for my business pursuits, and that's it. So it's okay to say no sometimes, but overall, I would say I prefer to be a yes person, and I think it's better to be a yes person, but it's okay to say no sometimes. Another important thing is to honor all standing meetings and commitments unless it's a true emergency. Like if someone's in the hospital, I have standing meetings for my day job or for my business or for the different volunteer opportunities. If you are in the habit of canceling things last minute or backing out of plans last minute because something else comes up, you're constantly in this vicious loop of playing catch up later. Like, oh, I'm going to need to come back to this later. Or I didn't attend the meeting, so now I'm going to have to watch the recording of it. Or I'm going to have to look through the slides later. Or now I need to reschedule with my friend or with a business colleague. Just keep things moving in the way that they were set up, because then you won't have to play catch up constantly. It seems like it's not a big deal, or some people are like, I'm really overwhelmed right now, so I'm going to push this off. You're still pushing it off, and that's just going to be the overwhelmed feeling of something's coming, but also I didn't do something now. So don't create that chaos if it doesn't need to be there. Also, prioritizing. We are not static people. We might have some static tasks, but we're not static people. Different things come up. We are not going to be the same person today that we're going to be next year. Different things are important at different times in our lives, and that's okay. Again, just sit down with yourself, be honest, figure out what needs to happen now, next week, next month, etc., and realize it's not all going to be the same. And then lastly, the technique that's really important, and we kind of talked about it at the beginning, is to intensely pre-plan your game plan. So sit down, ask yourself that list of questions, figure out what's working, what isn't working, and have like a map or a schedule or a calendar or notes of what you want to do with your time, and take it from there. So continuing with not reinventing the wheel, some of my favorite insights are from Bethany Frankel. She wrote a book called Naturally Thin. I think it was like 15 plus years ago, and she had a lot of very novel at the time insights on developing a relationship with food. I've kind of adopted those bits of advice that she curated and adopted it to time management. So things that she said in her book, where you can have it all but not all at once, and your diet is a bank account. For me, I also say you can have it all but not all at once, and your schedule is a bank account. So what does that mean, and what does this have to do with time management? So your schedule is a bank account. The things that you need to do to get into this mindset are balance your hypothetical checkbook. So in this case, time is the money. If you overspend on time one day, it's okay. Then you just underspend the next time. So for example, sometimes you might need to stay up late because you have a big presentation coming up, or you want to get some work done before you go on a trip, and you just need to stay up late to get that work done. That's okay. If you don't go to bed the exact same time every single day, it's not the end of the world. Nothing's going to come crashing down around you. But that means you should probably go to sleep a little bit earlier the next night. If you keep pushing yourself over and over and over and staying out of balance long term, that's when you can crash and burn, and you'll go into a deficit with your time, just like you would go into a deficit in your bank account. Sometimes you might need to rest more. For example, everyone gets sick. So if you need to not work as much in a situation, that's fine. If you being sick for a couple of days, or maybe you're caring for someone who's ill, or just something else comes up that takes your time away from these tasks you want to accomplish, that's okay if you're not letting things pile up the rest of the time. So again, it's kind of same idea. Sometimes you might need to work more, sometimes you might need to work less, and that's okay. Just balance that bank account where your time is kept. The other piece from Bethany is you can have it all, but not all at once. What that means is sometimes there's going to be scheduling overlap. Not everything is going to all be in its perfect place with like the same ratio of time dedicated to the same task each day, each week, each month, etc. And that's okay. So an example I wanted to give is that, for example, you could attend an after-work networking event and have a business meeting. This is something that has happened to me before. Every Thursday night, I meet with my business partner for 8 Count Cosmetics. However, when I lived in Rockville, Maryland, there was a networking event that would happen nearby periodically, and it would always be on a Thursday. I didn't not go to the networking event. I did not meet with my business partner, just kind of flexed it a little bit. So I would pretty much just leave the last 30 minutes of the event to make it home in time for the meeting, but I didn't get chaotic or stressed about it. Instead, I just made sure as I talked to each person, shook their hand, tried my best to remember their name, said, let me add you on LinkedIn right now. Stayed on top of it throughout the event rather than taking a whole bunch of notes and then going home later trying to remember who was who, try to see if I spelled their name right on LinkedIn. Just stay on the ball when you're at the event. And then when you leave the event, you're done with the event and you can move on to the next task. Sometimes, again, things aren't always static. Sometimes there's a schedule overlap. Sometimes one project or task needs your full attention. And this is the time when you need to be honest with those around you, because this is something that's not entirely in your control. If you need to really buckle down and focus on one task or a project or preparing for a meeting or a conference or writing a paper, it happens. But you need to determine if others need to step in and pick up the slack. Are you going to be able to pick up the slack yourself the next day or in a couple days? Or do you need to prioritize something? Because if you're finding that you're constantly having to have other people step in for you, or you're constantly having to catch up, it's time to go back, have that new honest conversation with yourself and identify those goals, priorities, weaknesses, etc. So just a few quick real life examples of time management techniques that worked. I wanted to make a bigger splash in the capital region. Again, post-COVID, things are opening up. I moved out here from Wisconsin in 2020, felt like I really wasn't kind of making the splash I wanted to with moving out here. And so the technique that I did was complying with my work's ethic policies while still attending events and taking on volunteer roles. So the job I was at that time was not allowed to do anything on the clock. Everything needed to be totally separate. That's fine. Worked out a schedule, was able to fit in everything that I wanted to, and then ended up building a strong presence and building my network. Another example is my best friend Lauren needed to find a new job after an industry layoff that happened this past summer. So she reworked her daily schedule. She was a very social person, oftentimes had plans with friends every single day after work, but she needed to reprioritize. So she made a new schedule going to work, coming home and working out and eating dinner immediately, then sitting down at the kitchen table and going on a job hunt, going through every single site, platform, applying for anything that was maybe even slightly relevant to her and not getting up from the table until she applied for every single open job that was there in that day. And then if time permitted, she would do things socially. And very, very quickly, she found a new job because she was able to buckle down, change her time management in this sort of acute period of stress when she really, really needed to focus on that one task of finding a new job. Another example was I needed to stay on track for the 8 Count cosmetic launch, despite the fact that we'd pretty much rebranded the last couple of months before our website and our product went live. We wanted to change the look, change the name, change the logo, kind of change the colors. And then some of our key ingredients were discontinued and we needed to adjust our whole pipeline. So that was a lot of extra stress on top of the fact that this is not something that I work on during my day job. So I needed to prioritize that after hour time as business time and kind of like Lauren did, put the social life on pause. I kind of deferred to other people for some of my volunteering tasks because again, this was an acute goal that I needed to meet rather than a long-term situation. And the outcome was that we launched on time. So I won't go through all of this, but just a little bit of insight into how I spend my time now that I've been doing this really aggressive time management for a couple of years. At the Academy, in 8 Count Cosmetics, and volunteering and in social time, I have daily tasks. At my job, everything happens basically between 8 and 4:30. There's meetings that happen. Teaching is the main priority because now I'm an instructor, but there's also like instrumentation maintenance I need to do, ordering, different things like that. But that all happens in this certain time frame, and pretty much no entrepreneurial or volunteer tasks are happening at that time. Sometimes I'll have ad hoc things that pop up, like being available on the weekends or in the evening sometimes. For 8 Count Cosmetics, I need to work around the Academy. So the morning and the evening are my work times where I'm checking emails. My husband brings orders that I've packaged in the evening to the post office. And then weekly I meet with a business partner. And then some other stuff might pop up, such as strategic partnership meetings. For volunteering, each organization is different, but I work on at least something daily for each of these organizations. Monthly, pretty much all of them, or bi-monthly have some type of standing meeting, but then priorities shift. So right now for Women in Bio, we're really focusing on the Her Story Gala, which is on May 8th. And then for Panic, that NMR conference, our event, our next in-person conference is going to be in Rockville. That's also in May. So those are kind of the two biggest priorities for my volunteering time. And then social time, I'll check my phone during lunch. But other than that, I'm not really doing social things at all at work. I'm not texting people, not calling people. But then free time, as long as I'm staying up to date with all of my other tasks, I still have plenty of time in the evenings or weekends to, go out to dinners, watch TV or movies. I like to go to museums, some type of maybe parties, birthdays. I like performing art shows, cooking, really anything that I want to do in my free time, because I'm not trying to multitask or pushing things off that I'm like stressed that I need to catch up with later. So now the second part, some of you may have seen this before. I actually presented a bit about network management through Women in Bio last year. So some general tips, and again, this is all focused on LinkedIn. Out here in the Capital Region, I think that's sort of the main hub where people communicate, but you could apply this to different platforms, just need to customize it a bit. General profile tips, the big thing is make sure everything's ready. So make sure all the sections are filled. On the left is just a list of all of the sections that you can edit on your personal profile in order. So just start at the top, work your way down, make sure you have at least something there. Once everything's filled out, proof the page for spelling. It doesn't look very professional if there's simple mistakes that you didn't take the time to correct. If you have links, make sure that the hyperlink is correct when you copy and pasted it or tagged something. For your photo, I recommend having your photos public. If you don't have a photo and you reach out to someone and you don't put a message, it comes across as, I call it stranger danger. Everyone's a stranger until you meet them. But sometimes when people have those super hidden profiles, but yet they're actively trying to network, that can seem a little bit suspicious. And then also in terms of privacy, decide if you want a public or private profile. Sometimes there might be a situation where you want it private, or maybe you want it private until you have the whole page set up. That's fine. Just make sure everything is the way you want someone you've never met before to see your information. So types of engagement on LinkedIn, and the best and most authentic way to build your network is to be engaged via a completed profile, creating your own original content, but then also engaging in other people's content, essentially how you would act in real life. You don't only want to be talking about yourself all the time, but you also don't never want to be talking about yourself all the time. An above average way to use the app is having a completed profile while supporting others' content and being engaged in that way. So maybe you're not really taking the time to sit down and put thoughtful posts or original photos or graphics, but you're still interacting on there a couple times a week at least. Acceptable but not ideal is having a completed profile, but you're not being engaged very often. And then unacceptable, if you're trying to build a network, is having an incomplete profile or the information's out of the date and you're not really interacting with everyone. That's not a good way to build a professional network. Just like ignoring everyone and telling people wrong information about you isn't a good way to make friends or different people in social situations. So my method for really aggressively building that network and building up your support system and being visible in the community, I call it bottom-up networking. So start with the low-hanging fruit. This is where if you send someone a message or invitation to connect, you won't need to send a message. So people that really, really know you, family, friends, classmates or instructors, coworkers. Then after you've kind of built that level of connection, then you can move on to acquaintances. So when you send that LinkedIn friend request, you might need to just send a little brief memory jogger because they'll probably recognize your face, might remember you a little bit, but a little extra something will help seal the deal with them accepting your invite. It could be someone that you met at a conference, or you connected with some type of scientific sales representative, or maybe it's a friend of a friend. After that, you're ready to branch out and connect with anybody. So when you send that message, always include a clear and concise message. So this could be people that you want to connect with virtually. Maybe someone posted about something really interesting online, or you read a paper written by someone and you want to connect with them. Put that in the message. Most of the time, they will add you back if your profile is complete. It doesn't look suspicious, and you have that sort of authentic network, and they can see that there's different mutual connections. Other things you could do is adding people that you have met kind of, but not really. Specifically, what I'm thinking of is if you were at a conference and you didn't talk to someone, but you're going through and adding all of the names of the people that were there, or perhaps you were at an event and the list of attendees was provided. Kind of just go through there and say, hey, we didn't get to connect, but I saw your name on this list. I'd like to connect now. Now, if you're trying to really expand your network, there's kind of two ways to do this. One is the organic way, and I call the other one the brute force way. So organic is you just follow up after you have a direct interaction with someone online or in person. The brute force way is where you're seeking out those connections, and deciding which way to go kind of comes back to having another honest conversation with yourself and asking this list of questions. Who do I want to connect with? What are my objectives for expanding my network? When do I want to begin working on this? Where will I find my new connections? Why have I not worked on this previously? And how does my profile make me look? So kind of similar vibe when talking to yourself about your new time management journey. Just be real, identify what actually your goals are. Why haven't you worked on these goals before? And how do you want to move forward? In terms of making new connections, again, organic, in person, you always want to keep your eyes open or actively search for events. That's how I got involved with Women in Bio. I wanted to meet other professionals in the area and start getting involved in organizations. So I was actively looking for events. Just like in real life or sort of your non-professional life, you should be pleasant, friendly, don't be phony, but again, don't be too casual with people. So just the general rules for interacting, and then always follow up with that invitation to connect and a brief note. The other way, that brute force way, you're trying to connect with as many people as possible because you're trying to find a new job, or maybe you're running for some type of position and you want to get yourself out there as quickly as possible. Send that LinkedIn invitation and include a message about why you're adding them. And then in terms of increasing visibility, creating content always helps. Some of the main ways that I categorize content creation is education, self-promotion, amplification, or personal stuff. I think a great way to start if you're trying to show that you have a technical skill or maybe you're ready for more leadership is to go the education route. A big reason I was able to expand my network quickly in the capital region like a year or two ago is because I started posting tutorials about lab equipment and different things I was doing, and then moved into NMR tutorials. And I was able to show that I had strong foundational techniques, but also I could explain things in a way that was easier for people to understand. And that kind of helped certain people see me as more of a leader who wasn't going to leave people in the dust or couldn't break down a task. Or maybe, sometimes people fill their conversations or their slides with a bunch of fluff, but they're really not a subject matter expert. So I think this is always a really great way to go if you are wanting to establish yourself as a leader or some type of technical professional. Again, don't forget the who, what, where, when, why, and how questions, because that'll help determine what type of content you're creating. And you should take it seriously, check for spelling, make sure the graphics look good, all of that stuff that we know, but don't let it bog you down. If you have a schedule of posting that you want to do and you miss a day, again, it's not the end of the world. Time can be flexible. Most importantly, though, never, ever share proprietary information on social media. If you want to take pictures in the lab or talk about a technique, that's fine, but don't talk about the exact experiment you're doing and where you got the samples from and what your results are. Same thing with anything in science. Never share proprietary information on social media, and never share personal information you don't want people to have access to. If it's on the internet, it lives there now. And then something I would recommend doing, and feel free to scan the QR code and follow the Women in Bio Capital Region page, is special interest group. So my definition of a special interest group is any page or group that brings together a group of users based on a common interest. So this can include organizations, conferences, businesses, or private groups based on subjects or like alumni groups. For almost anything, you can just follow the page and you'll start seeing their content. But if it's a group, sometimes you have to request to join the group and you might have to answer some questions. This is a great way to, again, find the people that you want to connect with. You could maybe put yourself out there, advertise something you have coming up, ask some questions, and connect with those like-minded people if you're not necessarily meeting them in person. And speaking of in-person things, I wanted to invite everyone to consider attending the Women in Bio Her Story Gala, which is going to be in May at Pinstripes in North Bethesda. We're going to have 2 keynote speakers who are leading ladies in the local biotech scene. And this is a really great way to meet with women from all levels, whether it's from college through an executive level. Get yourself out there, kind of put your name in the bin of all those young professionals that are trying to make a splash in the capital region, but also get inspired and have a fun night out while also building your network. And with that, just wanted to recap the key takeaways in case anyone jumped on throughout the slides. The thing you need to do if you're wanting to give yourself a time management makeover is start off by having an honest conversation with yourself to identify what needs to happen. Everyone's needs are unique in terms of your current situation, but you don't need to reinvent the wheel. There's a lot of tried and true techniques out there. Consider exploring them and adapting them to what is unique about you. Treat your plan, your schedule, your strategy, whatever it may be, as a top priority while you navigate your new time management journey. Just like if you were on a journey to get healthier in some aspect of your life, or you were trying to pass a class or hit some certain goal, adjusting your time management does take time, whether you're breaking bad habits or trying to build a new habit. It's not going to happen overnight, and you need to be committed and focused on this journey. Your accomplishments and goals don't exist in a vacuum. You can have great time management, be doing all kinds of fun things, hitting your goals, but if people don't know about it, you don't have a network. So be willing to put yourself out there either in person at events or virtually on platforms like LinkedIn. And I just wanted to thank everyone for their time and wish everyone best of luck on their new time management journey. And with that, I think we'll move into the Q&A.